it isn't just the red side of Manchester that makes bad signings. Believe it or not, for all their complex scouting systems, Manchester City have also made some terrible transfer decisions. So, let's talk about all the players who ruined their careers by joining the Premier League giants. We start with a player who was at the top of the world at the turn of 2010. Maicon was quite a star at Internacional before he was tamed by a young Gareth Bale twice in the Champions League. That game against Tottenham was quite something, wasn't it? Fast forward to 2012 when he signed for Manchester City. Many expected the Brazilian to offer stiff competition to fan favourites Pablo Zabaleta and Micah Richards, but injuries pretty severely impacted his output in what was his first and only season at City. After hitting the net on 27 occasions in the 2 Serie A campaigns for Fiorentina, it made sense for Manchester City to bring in Stevan Jovetic. However, the Montenegro striker was simply not good enough for the Premier League. He ended up with 11 goals from 44 appearances across all competitions. That isn't exactly a terrible tally, but Jovetic was meant to be scoring goals for fun. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and he was eventually shipped to Inter Milan. Now this was a terrible decision, and a perfect example of why young players should not jump at the chance of representing a big club. Scott Sinclair was a true star for Swansea City, who were a sensation in the Premier League. In the summer of 2012, he decided to join Manchester City. Many expected him to shine, but the winger ended up making just 2 league starts in 3 years. He was on the right track, but Sinclair's eagerness to make a bigger move was a roadblock he probably should have seen coming. In the summer of 2017, City signed Mendy from Monaco for a whopping £52 million. Frenchman was expected to be their left-back for years to come. After spending 6 years, he left the club as a free agent, and a major chunk of that time was spent battling a legal case where he was proven innocent. Mendy is now at Lorient. Safe to say, his career could have gone so much better if circumstances weren't so bad. After showcasing his goal-scoring prowess for Swansea, Boney was signed by Manchester City in 2014 for £25 million. The Ivorian was always going to be a backup option from day one. It was clear that he was a pointless signing. After 6 goals from 36 appearances, he returned to the Welsh club. Once again, if things are working out well with your current employer, don't get too greedy. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Phillips' career was doing just fine when he was being an all-action midfielder for Leeds United. The English midfielder was an important player for them, and his form led him to become a regular starter for England during the 2020 European Championship. For some reason, Pep Guardiola decided to bring him to the Etihad for £42 million in 2022. Phillips' arrival meant that Rodri would have some competition, but that was not the case because the Spanish tactician made a big mistake. Guardiola isn't a huge fan of his and has pretty much given up on a player he wanted to sign. If you're a midfielder and your manager decides to put the likes of John Stones or Manuel Akanji in your position, it means that you're not wanted. Okay, so we can't really say that City ruined Joe Hart's career because the English shortstopper wasn't ever present for the citizens for a long time. That was until Pep Guardiola arrived. It was clear that the Spaniard was going to come in with his ideas, and Hart's approach towards football was simply not compatible with the Catalonian. At that time, Hart was one of the best goalkeepers in Europe and played a crucial role in the team's first ever Premier League title triumph, but Guardiola had other ideas. The result was that Hart was phased out of the starting 11 and then consigned to a life in the wilderness. He lost his spot on the national team as well. Eventually, he left for Torino before moving to West Ham. These days, he's playing at Celtic. Safe to say that Hart's career was ruined by City. Yet another career that was needlessly ruined. In 2015, Claudio Bravo helped Barcelona win the European treble. For Chile, he'd won back-to-back Copa America titles. To put it simply, Bravo was the happiest player on the planet before he joined Manchester City. For some reason, he simply didn't click for City and was swiftly replaced by Willy Caballero. In 2016, the writing was on the wall when Guardiola signed Ederson, who's still the club's #1. Just because of that 1 year, Bravo isn't part of conversations about the best keepers of the century. That's just 1 year. Football's fickle, huh? Okay, So you can say that it was Pep Guardiola whose arrival tarnished Yaya Touré's legacy at the club. But the truth of the matter is that the City owners must have known this would happen, so it's also their fault. Touré and Guardiola did not get along well, which is why the Ivorian left Barcelona. Little did he know that a few years later he would have an awkward reunion with a manager who didn't really have the time of day for him. The moment the Spaniard arrived, we knew that Touré would suffer. Here was a man who was literally the driving force behind City's rise as a powerhouse of English football. Touré carried City and was a true fan favourite. But Guardiola's arrival spelled the end of his City career and stopped Touré from finishing his story the way he wanted to. In recent years, it seems that Guardiola has had a lot to do with ruining careers, but that isn't entirely the case. Take, for instance, Emmanuel Adebayor, who joined City in 2009. The Togolese striker signed a 5-year deal, but was deemed surplus to requirements after barely half a season. He simply wasn't a City type of player. The citizens already had Carlos Tevez and Mario Balotelli in the squad, and in 2010, they ended up signing Edin Dzeko. In the winter transfer window of 2011, he was farmed out to Real Madrid before moving to Tottenham. Things could have been much more different if City had a plan for him when they brought him over. There was a time when City loved signing players from Arsenal. After Adebayor, Bakary Sagna and Gaël Clichy, it was Samir Nasri's turn to ditch the Gunners. The French winger's arrival meant that City's attacking options got even better. However, the Frenchman failed to shine the way he did at Arsenal. At the time, Roberto Mancini was in the dugout, and the Italian had issues with the player's commitment. The City manager once even said that he would like to punch Nasri because of his inconsistency. On top of that, the petulant winger was injury-prone as well, so his career at City never really took off. By 2017, he was out of the club and playing in Turkey, where he tested positive for taking drugs and ended up missing 18 months of football because of that. Let's be honest, guys, it wasn't exactly City who ruined Nasri's career. He was just one of those players who was meant to crash and burn, and nothing about it was graceful. Speaking of graceful, the end of Robinho's playing career has been anything but. Now retired, the Brazilian is evading Italian police. Way before that, he became Manchester City's first ever mega signing when he joined them from Real Madrid for 42 million euros. Robinho was supposed to be the main man, but truth be told, he didn't really care much about it because during his presentation, he accidentally said that Chelsea offered him a great proposal, which he expected while wearing the City colours. That's how much he cared about his new team. After scoring on his debut against Chelsea, it all went downhill. In the first campaign, the Brazilian scored 14 goals and provided 5 assists, which wasn't a bad return. However, the next season he scored once out of 12 appearances, and every time he was on the pitch he looked very disinterested. In January 2010, he was loaned out to Santos in Brazil, before joining AC Milan permanently in 2010. Safe to say that Robinho was in the long line of strikers who failed at City. Guys like Giorgio Samaras, Roque Santa Cruz, Joe Benjani, and the list goes on. So guys, this was our take on the players ruined by Manchester City. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And before you leave, make sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons, turn on your notifications, and watch this next video. Till next time,